All right, it is my pleasure now to welcome on the Director of Mental Health Services, Brian Jeffrey. Brian, thank you so much for joining me today.
That would have been round about 1986 I moved. So it's that, I'm about 20 years old, something like that. And that's actually where ice hockey started. That's where the ice hockey story
Yeah,
commences.
okay.
So
Hopefully you were good at ice hockey because every role you've had seems you were no good at it.
I was really good at being an ice hockey fan. Yeah. Now, anybody that knows me from the Mustangs or any of the Melbourne Ice fans that know me will probably know that I'm a little bit barbed about the mouth, and I don't mind doing a little bit of sarcasm in the stands. Um, So around about 1986, I was a big football fan. You guys in Australia call it soccer. I don't know why you do that because that's an American term. But football, round ball, a big football fan. But there was an awful lot of violence in the football back in Scotland, in the crowds.
Mhm.
So I was brought up as a Protestant. So as a Protestant in Scotland, you followed Rangers.
Yeah.
So my older sister was going out with this guy who's a Rangers fan, so I got into Rangers in a big way. But then Rangers started bringing over all these Italian players and paying lots of money for them,
Mhm.
and it became like checkbook football kind of thing. The team with the biggest budget had the best players, and that kind of annoyed me in principle as a young adult. So I started following Celtic, which was, for all intents and purposes, the Catholic team, as they said in Scotland.
That's a very big backflip.
It was. I lost a lot of friends in that decision. Made some new ones.
Yeah.
But what I liked about Glasgow Celtic then was that they were still a Glasgow football team, and it was kind of working class sport for working class Glaswegians.
Mhm.
So I really liked that. But there was still a lot of violence in the crowd. And then when I was working in the motor trade in Edinburgh, so it's 1986-ish, one of my mates, Budgie, that I worked with, Billy Burgess was his name, but we call him Budgie. Budgie had said to me, fancy coming and watching an ice hockey match at the weekend? And I says, what's ice hockey? And he says, oh, you'll love it. He says, there's a lot of fighting. And I said, oh, I get enough of that with football. And he said, no, the actual players do the fighting. Nobody fights in the crowd. And I says, oh, sounds ideal. So went along to the Saturday match, the Murrayfield Racers. Can't remember who they were playing. But there was a fight. Like halfway through the game, there was this big fight where everybody's kind of getting into each other on the ice. And I was looking at it thinking, oh, this is good.
Yeah.
And I was looking around the crowd, the opposition crowd were there, and they were shouting, and I was shouting, and everybody else was shouting, but they weren't shouting at each other. They were shouting at the players. And I've always liked that about ice hockey, that, there's so much energy, let's call it,
Yeah.
on the ice, but it hardly ever spills out into the crowd.
Mhm.
Even at a Melbourne Mustangs, Melbourne Ice derby game, when I'm running my mouth off like a idiot, or when we're at Canberra, CBR's a great rink to go to.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the worst rinks in the Southern Hemisphere,
It's disgraceful, but in
but
terms of atmosphere, it's
to
insane.
go.
Yeah.
And they wear tartan. The CBR fans wear tartan, which is obviously kind of cool for me. But we're mouthing off each other, and at the end of the game, they come over and they congratulate or hang the crap on us.
Yeah.
But it's all very friendly at the end. So
Yeah.
that was the thing in 1986 that really captured me about hockey. I thought, you know what, this is a game for me. So I was bitten by the bug. Myself and Budgie and a couple other guys, Deacon Dode were the guys' names. We used to travel up and down the UK every weekend following the Murrayfield Racers. So I
Mhm.
can't remember which way around it was. I think Saturday was the away game and Sunday was the home game from memory. So on Saturday we'd be in, I don't know, south of England watching the hockey, drive up overnight, go to Edinburgh on the Sunday and watch the home game. And that was every weekend pretty much during the hockey season. So that was where the hockey thing started.
Mhm.
I'd never skated, right? I was one of the biggest hockey fans in Edinburgh, right? So I claimed ice hockey daft for about 14 years before I left. I'd never skated. And I arrived in Australia and I thought, maybe I could start playing hockey. I could be like Tony Hand, right? So Tony Hand was the guy from the UK that set the world alight in ice hockey. He was one of the Murrayfield Racers players, yeah. And at the age of 16, he's playing top-level UK hockey, getting twice as many points per game as any of the imports. You know, this guy was just an ice hockey genius, absolute legend. Actually, Tony Hand, have a look at elite prospects, Tony Hand's numbers. 16, 17, 18-year-old kid, just blowing it out of the park. So I thought I could be like Tony, you know, forgetting that I'm an old man at this point. So I looked up ice hockey, and there wasn't really much ice hockey happening at the time, but there was inline hockey happening at maybe Campbellfield. Or was it Sunshine, maybe? Can't remember.
I think Campbellfield sounds right.
Campbellfield. Yeah, it was Campbellfield. Yeah, it was Campbellfield. It's that one just off the ring road. And I went up there, and I got told to catch up with a guy called Nifty. Really good hockey player, can't remember his name. But he was one of the coaches, a young guy. So I went up there with inline skates and kind of tried my best. So he was the first guy that taught me how to skate, pretty much. So I started skating a little bit. I think my first game was about 3 or 4 months later, and that was up at Campbellfield for maybe the blue jersey. Can't remember the name of the team. But my first game, I played D, because I'd always played D or goalie in football. And I really liked the way D's played their game in ice hockey back in the day, you know, because it was kind of accountable hockey they played. You know, it's like going up to the opposition, tapping them on the shoulder and saying, "Get the hell out of my crease. You know, you're not welcome in front of my goalie. Move." You know, it was that kind of hockey, real good physical stuff. So I was getting loads of penalties, and yeah, I wasn't really a good skater. I wasn't really good a hockey player. I had a wonderful shot. I had a really good shot on me. Well, a strong shot, not a good shot. It could go absolutely anywhere, but it went fast, yeah. So I started playing puck handlers, maybe end of 2001 or something like that, with a team called the Mother Puckers. So the Mother, I need to be very clear on what I'm saying here, Mother Puckers with a P. So that was, who was it? That was Anita Connolly, Martez Kavanagh, Alba Cesario, Shane, a guy called Shane. Chuck Winham was playing with them, and it was just great. It was fun hockey. So we played various competitions, you know, Silver Cup kind of stuff and all the rest of it. But I think it was my first year as a D, when I was playing there, that I fell over and did that stupid thing that people do when they're falling over playing hockey, where I put my hand down and the wrist just went ping and snapped. So that was me out for about 6 months with a broken wrist. The right hand, of course, yeah, the dominant hand.
Perfect. You don't really need that.
Yeah. No, having a shave with your left hand's a fun thing. You know, buttoning up a shirt with your left hand's a fun thing, and various other things.
Yeah.
Like tying up laces.
Yeah, of course.
My
audience will get that.
When I came back from that, I thought, you know what? I don't think being a D is really the gig for me. We were playing, I think, 3-line hockey at the time, and one of the things that really annoyed me was you paid the full amount for the game, but you only played a third of the game. And I don't want to get too cliched with Scotsmen being tight with their money and all that stuff, but I just thought, return on investment, I could be a goalie. You get to stay out there for the whole game, and you're kind of hero and villain at the same time. and you get a little bit more latitude from the referees to hit people, I find, as a goalie than you do as a D. And I thought, this is a position for me. I thought, how hard could it be? God, it's hard. Tough gig. So I started playing in goals probably around about then, end of 2001, 2002, something like that. Loved it. So I think my first team was the Mother Puckers that I transitioned from. That guy Shane, his name's Shane Jenkins, just came back to me. So I started playing D with them, but then I transitioned into goalie when I came back after the broken wrist. I never looked back, to be perfectly honest. I love it. I absolutely adore being a goalie. It's fantastic. So that was really where the ice hockey concept started. It was Inline at the time, but that was where the ice hockey I could actually be a hockey player thing started. So what's that? 2001. It's now 2020. So 19 years later, I'm still a very average ice hockey goalie. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay. You know, there's been some kind of cool stuff over the journey.
Yeah.
I think 2008 was probably the start of me being kind of okay. You know, so like, you know, being a big fish in a small pool kind of thing. There weren't an awful lot of goalies in my age group at that time in Victoria. There's maybe about, 4 or 5 kind of serious-ish goalies in my age group. So when it came to the Victorian state championship kind of thing, in the Masters division, there was only a few of us that were of that age range. And there was probably only 1 or 2 of us that were actually interested in playing for the state. So, if you could afford to go to the state competition and you were the right age group and you knew which pad to put on which leg, you kind of got the gig. So there was me and Colin. What's Colin's surname? Can't remember his surname. So me and Colin kind of did the double act for a while as the Vic goalies in that Masters kind of age range. I got picked to be on the Australian team a few times, which I thought was actually pretty cool. So in the Vic team, I think we did a competition in Caloundra, did a competition in Springvale, I'm going to say. Springers, I think it was called. I don't think I played in the competition that AIHL had. Puck Handlers then had. But then the Australian team, we went to Perth for a comp, went to New Zealand, New Plymouth, I think it was called, which was great fun. And then we went to the Czech Republic. Got to play in the Czech Republic against guys that could actually play hockey. We were, I think it was Brno or something it's called, was the actual place where the competition was. We were living at accommodation in Prague. So that was 2011, I think. What a wonderful competition. Played against Italy. And it was like serious hockey players. Played against the Czech Republic, did we? Yeah, I think we played against the Czech team. And there was guys on that team that had played serious ice hockey. Played the Scottish team as well, so I swapped jerseys at the end of the competition, the Scottish goalie, who was actually a goalie that I admired as an ice hockey goalie back in Scotland. But what you didn't see, if you just went to the competition in Brno and you saw everybody playing hockey and you thought it was kind of serious, what you didn't see was the Scottish Inline Hockey Masters team after that. Now, I don't know if I can get done for slander or something like that, but
we can edit it out.
No, keep it in. It's okay. Have a crack at it.
I wasn't going to take it out.
So the Scottish team were as drunk people full of drunkenness the whole holiday.
That's very on-brand for Scottish people.
And just those ones. This Scottish guy wasn't, because I don't drink, right? So the Scottish guy was sober. But they were, every night they were drunk as hell. And they were coming in the next day, obviously hungover, but still playing kind of pretty good hockey. But you know what, we did really well. The Australian team over there did really well against that kind of level of opposition. But Masters inline hockey, it's Masters. It's not really that serious. But I've just adored that journey. Being a hockey player, a very mediocre goalie, I hasten to add, has been absolutely fantastic for me. It's obviously opened up the door for the Mustangs, which we'll go on and talk about at some point, of course. But then I suppose the transition from inline to ice must have started around about 2009. And then in 2010, that was my introduction to the AIHL. How did this happen? Melbourne Ice, how did that happen? I think I must have just seen that Melbourne Ice play ice hockey at Oakley. I must have just seen that. Yeah, I must have. So I went down one day and, they didn't have a real big fan base in Oakley. And I caught up with this guy who was one of the head honchos, can't remember who it was, chit chat. And he kind of spoke to me, and he started talking to me about my business, because I'd started Moat Mental Health Services probably in 2003. Business had kind of developed quite nicely. I was kind of doing okay with it. And then he asked me about Moat Mental Health Services and said, would you be interested in sponsoring Melbourne Ice? And I said, what do you get for it? And he pointed up to the kind of idiots gallery up in the corner where the sponsors all sat. He says, you've got to go and watch a game up there. And I says, well, maybe invite me up there for one of the games and I'll have a look at it and see what it's like. So the next game I sat up there with all the dignitaries, and you got a free can of Coca-Cola or whatever, a scarf. And I says, you know what? Yeah, no, that must have been 2009, the 2009 season. And then he says, would you be interested in sponsoring next season? I says, yeah, why not? So I became the shorts sponsor, hockey shorts. So the Moat Mental Health Services on their hockey shorts. Also that year, I can't remember if that was Jason Baclig's first year, 2010. Might have been. But I said, I want to sponsor one of the players. What imports he got this season? And this is all, I've got this guy, Jason Baclig, blah, blah, blah. I thought, oh yeah, kind of cool name, why not? So Jason came over, joined the team. I got to meet him. Do you know Jason? Do you know who Jason Baclig is?
Probably one of the best, probably one of the best imports to play in the league.
Absolutely.
If not the best.
And potentially one of the nicest guys that's ever set foot in Australia. It's just absolute gold. So Baxi, if you're listening, thank you, mate. So I caught up with Jason and we talked about I'd be his player sponsor. Now, a lot of imports that I've come in contact with don't really enormously embrace that concept. Yeah, some of them have, and some of them have been absolute legends. But you get a few that are kind of, oh, right, you're my sponsor, thanks, mate. But Jason went above and beyond. He said to me, in one of our early conversations, he says, Brian, I'm your player, I'm your sponsored player. What do you want from me? And I says, kind of nothing, mate. Just paying a little bit of money into the club. It's a kind of donation, kind of to help the club to be able to play. And he says, no, what can I do for you? And I says, I don't know, what can you do, Jason? And he says, well, when I'm going about, during the week, he says, do you want me to wear a Moat Mental Health Services branded jacket or t-shirt or polo shirt? And people will come up to me and ask who that is, and I can tell them all about Moat Mental Health Services and do some marketing for you. And I says, would you do that? And he says, of course I would. You're sponsoring me, Brian. I thought, God, that's just the nicest thing. So that season, 2010, Jason and I kind of got to know each other a bit, and I got to know Deb and the kids, in future years. You probably know that Jason's a wonderful musician. Haybacks is him his mate, man. We had a couple of kind of party things at the house, Christmas functions, Christmas do's, and we got Baxi to come over and be the musical accompaniment, so got him and his mate to come over, Haybacks, and we'd obviously pay them, to come over and be the music for a couple of Christmas do's that we had at the house, and absolutely fantastic. Everybody loved it. Then when Deb and I got married, 2015, we got Baxi to come over and do a bit of an acoustic kind of thing when the guests were all arriving. And he's just the most wonderful, wonderful guy. I've met some fantastic people through the Mustangs, and we'll talk about that shortly. But in regards to Melbourne Ice, I'm not an enormous fan of Melbourne Ice because I'm a Mustangs fan now. In 2010, when I was their short sponsor, I loved it. They were great, and they did an awful lot of good things for me. And again, that connection with Baxi was fantastic. At the end of 2010, beginning of 2011, we kind of parted company because something happened that we don't need to go into just now. But we parted company and I stopped sponsoring. And then, I don't know if you know John Baclig, Baclig, the president of the Mustangs. Him and I were playing hockey together. I think it must have been the night owls or something like that. So we're sitting in the change room like a couple of old guys sweating profusely. before the game. That was just putting the gear on, yeah. And he was chatting to me and saying, he was chatting to me and saying, hey Brian, got a new team kind of starting up, Melbourne Mustangs. Are you interested in kind of helping out? And I says, well, you know, I've finished with Melbourne, so yeah, why not, John? And he said, well, we've got this exhibition season, but then we're going to go into the real season 2011. Would you be interested in sponsoring us 2011? Just for a season? I said, yeah, why not? So gave some money, got a bit of a sponsorship package for one season. 2011, one season. 2020, still the sponsor of the Melbourne Mustangs. John's a really good salesman.
Yeah.
Yeah, he could sell snow to Eskimos.
Yeah.
It doesn't do too bad. At the end of every season, I remember thinking, gee, that was a lot of money, you know, for some season tickets, you know, and framed jerseys, you know, and some wonderful connection. And my accountant used to say to me at the end of every financial year, so this chunk of money that goes to advertising and sponsorship and promotion, where does that go? I says, Melbourne Mustangs. He says, what's that? It's ice hockey. He says, so what do you get for it? I says, season tickets. And he says, how much are season tickets? So I tell him how much season tickets are and how much sponsorship is, and he's standing there scratching his head saying, what are you thinking about? You know what? It's not about the money.
No.
But giving back to school and ice hockey. It's nothing to do with money. I thankfully was the naming rights sponsor, Moat Mental Health Services. It was the Moat Melbourne Mustangs for, I don't know, that was maybe for 2 seasons. Maybe 2013, 2014 or 2014, 2015. But importantly, 2014. Don't know if you know what happened with the Mustangs in 2014.
The title. I was in attendance.
Absolutely. So was I. And I can't remember the opposition team in the grand final. They weren't travelling too well. I'm thinking it was maybe a 6-1 win or something like that.
Yeah, it was 6-1.
And I remember 2 minutes to the end of the game, looking at the clock and looking at the score and thinking, can I start goading them yet? Or is Mr. Fate going to come and slap me in the side of the head and then, you know, Fraser's going to let in 6 goals? what's the gig going to be here? But yeah, obviously 2014 was gorgeous. Melbourne Mustangs sponsor. One of the things that blew me away about my connection with the Mustangs was that my kids, Paddy and Georgia, at 10 and 7 years old, as they were then, looked up to the Mustangs as demigods. Quite rightly, yeah. And for good reason, which I'll give you an example of in a moment. But one of the things that I provided for the Melbourne Mustangs as part of my sponsorship was I said to the club, if any of the guys need any counselling, you know, performance anxiety or anything like that, I'm here. Yeah, you can come to my house, come into this office right here. We can sit down, we can talk about whatever it is you need to talk about. You know, free counselling for any Mustang. And I thought, well, that's going to be easy. These guys are demigods. They won't have kind of day-to-day problems. How naive of a mental health worker to think that people at an elite level of any sport aren't going to have problems.
Yeah.
The Mustangs kept me busy, just like any other hockey team would, or any other sporting team would. And it was a wonderful opportunity for my kids to see their demigods arriving at the front door and coming in to spend an hour with me in the office. And my kids know what I do for a job. They know why the guys are here, you know. And then we'd maybe go out and grab a pizza with the kids and have a laugh before they went home again. And it was just a wonderful opportunity to remind my kids, but everyone, that mental health doesn't discriminate. It doesn't give a crap whether you're good at skating or not. It's going to visit everyone. Now, one of the clubs in the AIHL that's right into this is CBR Brave. The mental health profile that CBR Brave have got is enormous. The amount of work they're doing, you know, the Movember kind of stuff and everything else. Now, it's one player in particular that's driving that, as far as I'm aware, but the whole club has embraced it. Ask Melbourne Mustangs. You know, the Melbourne Mustangs, the conversations I've had with them over the years about, you know, how do we connect with people in the community? How do we make sure that, you know, our club is open to members of every community? It's been great conversations. But I suppose I was thinking there about this idea that my kids look up to these guys, right? Now, I can't name all of the Mustangs, and none of them are better than the rest, but some of them have been absolute standouts in our family's existence. Now, Pat O'Kane, everybody knows Pat O'Kane, right? So Pat O'Kane is just the most gorgeous guy. 5'7" professional hockey player. You don't get many of them. There doesn't. I think Jason's about 5'8". Yeah. So Pat came over, I don't know when that was, 2013, 2014, whenever, and became part of our life, and still is part of our life. He's just a wonderful, wonderful guy. But there was a story that I tell frequently. So this must be 2012, maybe, something like that. We had this guy from Vancouver came over, Jake Ebner, played number 61 from memory, and Ollie Wren was the goalie. And the two of them were kind of average hockey players over there, I'm sure, but they were pretty good over here. As in, were pretty good. Not the best, but pretty good. My son Paddy then was 9 years old, 10 years old, something like that. And it was his birthday coming up. And the guys were up playing in Brisbane that weekend. And Jake had said to Paddy, "What are you doing for your birthday, the birthday weekend?" And Paddy says, "Oh, me and my mates are going skating at the ice house." And Jake and Ollie came back from the Brisbane game on the Sunday in time to come and have a skate with Paddy and his mates on the Sunday night at the ice house. And they had a skate with them. I think they were still wearing their jerseys, stinking jerseys. And Jake said to Paddy, "It's your birthday today?" And Paddy said, "No, it's Tuesday," or whenever it is. And Jake says, "What are you doing Monday night?" And Paddy says, "Oh, school night." And Jake says, "Do you think your mum and Brian would let me and Ollie come over on Monday night?" And Paddy says, "Can I ask?" So he asked us, and he says, "Yeah, of course." So Jake Ebner and Ollie Wren came over and had a movie night with Paddy for his birthday and slept over. That kind of thing doesn't happen in other sports. You know, the connection between the fan base and the elite athletes, the demigods in Australian Ice Hockey League is just gorgeous. Now, that's a Mustang story, but it's not a Mustang story. That's Australian Ice Hockey story.
Yeah,
you know,
that makes such a difference. It's moments like that I don't think. Well, I do to some regard. I think that the athletes and the players do know the impact they're going to have, but I don't think they probably understand the full impact.
And just, I mean, another example of that, because of what you just said there. So Paddy's playing hockey now, plays in the same team as me, which is kind of cool.
The Masters.
The Rebels.
Yeah.
Star Wars team.
Yeah.
So Paddy and I play in the Rebels just now. Well, not just now, but hopefully 30th of November. Beer League starting again, hopefully. So anyway, 2011, when the Mustangs did their first serious season after their exhibition year, Benny Grant was one of the guys. He didn't really get a big run with the team, but gorgeous guy. A young guy, really, really young guy. Played number 27. At the first home game, so Paddy's just a really young kid, and George is a really young kid. So we are at the venue after the game. When the team come in, we're all having dinner together and having a chat, and the team would come up and chat to us. And Benny Grant came up to the table, introduced himself to Paddy. So I'm Benny Grant, number 27. He says, "Do you want to come and meet the rest of the team?" And Paddy's face just lit up. So he got a programme and a pen, and he took Paddy around every team member and got an autograph, an introduction with every team member. Paddy came back. Ever since, where possible, Paddy has played number 27. That's his number, and that'll be his number whenever he's playing hockey. If he gets a choice of a number, he automatically says 27, and that's Benny Grant. You know, so it's just another example of how one genuine moment goes on and lights up a kid's life, and puts Paddy on a path, an awesome path that he's on just now. And a lot of that comes down to good luck, some good decisions. I mean, Mustangs, Melbourne Ice, you know, the whole community. There's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good way to finish. And I just want to thank you, one, for giving us a little bit of background on you and, you know, sort of your journey here We'll get all your contact details for yourself and for the company into the episode, so that, you know, if anyone does need to reach out for whatever reason, we've got that information handy.